If you haven't noticed by now, I really like Metal Gear Solid 5, and I've talked about it a lot on this channel. Hell, I've talked about Metal Gear Solid 5 even when the video isn't about Metal Gear Solid 5. So, logically, I'm gonna make another video about Metal Gear Solid 5. However, I'm gonna talk about Metal Gear Solid 5 in a way that I've not talked about Metal Gear Solid 5 ever before. Metal Gear Solid 5, I'm just trying to say it as much as possible. I'm gonna talk about the lesser known and overlooked PlayStation 3 port of Metal Gear Solid 5. Back when next gen still meant PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, similarly to what's happening right now, whenever a new game came out towards the beginning of the console's life cycle, it would also be released on last gen consoles. And normally this would result in a product that is wholly inferior to the current gen game that's coming out. I always think about Shadow of Mordor. On a PlayStation 4, that game runs buttery smooth, but on a PS3, it stutters, the frame rate's low, the sound glitches out completely, sounding like really muffled audio coming out of one of those TVs you have in a hotel somewhere in Latin America that hasn't changed since the 90s. Like, just really rough around the edge quality. Which is why when I play Metal Gear Solid 5 on PlayStation 3, I'm actually surprised at how well that this game designed for completely different and more advanced hardware holds up. So today I'm Pliskin, and let's start going through the ups and downs of this port and whether or not it's really worth it and how it compares to its PS4 counterpart. So let's start by talking about the flaws, because there really are some setbacks to playing this game on PlayStation 3 in comparison to PlayStation 4. The first thing I want to talk about is frame rate drops. Whenever there's a really fast movement like Fultoning or sometimes running, if there's a lot of foliage or generally a lot happening on screen, there will be a frame rate drop. Now, this kind of stuff has never really bothered me because I grew up essentially playing Ground Zeroes on PlayStation 3, so seeing Phantom Pain have the same kind of issues, it doesn't really bother me that much, I'm used to it. But if you're the type of person that gets really bothered by stuttery frame rates, maybe you shouldn't go near this one. Again, it's not like a slideshow, but it's enough to be a little hard on the eyes and definitely noticeable. Another flaw would be how one of the main complaints with Metal Gear Solid 5 period is the fact that you have long loading times and wait times for the chopper. Now, the chopper doesn't necessarily take too long, but those aforementioned loading times are a lot longer than they would be on PlayStation 4. And while it's like the main menu type of loading times when you're getting in the game or it's loading up a cutscene or something like that, it's not too much of an issue. But something I always tend to notice is that whenever you're going through the menus, like trying to order the chopper to come and pick you up, or going through the different gun menus, sometimes icons don't load up, sometimes it takes forever just to open the menu, so you're sitting there for almost like 20 seconds waiting to call in your chopper, adding more time to that. Or if you're trying to customize a gun and you can't see certain parts because they're not loading in, it can be a little bit frustrating. So the game really has to take its time when you're going through menus, and seeing as though this is Metal Gear Solid 5 and there are a lot of menus involved, this can get a little annoying. Now, while I'm not going to shit on the graphics too much here, it is a graphical downgrade. The faces still look like faces, hair still looks like hair. It's not looking like a PS2 game running. It's not like those old school PS2 ports where you'd play the game on PlayStation 3 and it would be a full-fledged game, then you play it on PlayStation 2 and everyone's like a weird kind of scarecrow / wax model. It's not like that here. However, if you notice Snake's hands while he's holding like the iDroid, the fingernail textures, or textures on the battle gear, like whenever you get up close and personal on something that isn't a face, textures tend to get blurry. Foliage tends not to look too good, and it's noticeable. It's kind of like when you're playing Skyrim on an Xbox 360 and the rock or ground textures aren't really loading in, so you're kind of just exploring and walking through like this weird space of different shaped blobs. Again, it's not that bad with Metal Gear Solid 5. However, when you get up close and personal with certain details, you're gonna see that it's not crisp clean, and they did make some cuts and shortcuts to getting this game to run on PlayStation 3. Sacrifices had to be made, is what I'm saying.
Oh, Snake.
But enough about the cons, let's start talking about the pros of getting this game on PlayStation 3, or maybe not so much pros, but how it holds up and compares to the same quality of the PS4 version. The gameplay is still as crisp and addictive as ever, the AI is smooth, the weapon variety is still all there, like there's no basic gameplay limitations that you would face. The only thing I notice is that instead of being able to do that thing where you press square to jump off edges and Snake will do this really cool roll, this Snake will just kind of glitch out in midair and then either end up on his stomach or on his feet. Small thing, but besides that, the game plays extremely similar to the PlayStation 4 version. I know I ragged on the visuals and frame rate before, however, this is still a damn good looking game on PlayStation 3. It might not be running the smoothest, but I feel like the facial animations and the Fox engine really hold up and really serve a high quality set of visuals for you to be looking at. Even held up to today's standards, I wouldn't call this a bad looking game. In fact, frame rate aside, I'd say based solely on visuals, this would be comparable to The Last of Us on PlayStation 3, where it still looks damn good, almost uncanny valley with its facial animations, just an all-round good-looking game for the PlayStation 3. The biggest benefit I'd say this PlayStation 3 version has is if you've never really played Metal Gear Solid 5 and for some reason you don't want to spend the money to get the PS4 version even though it should be cheap as hell right now, the PlayStation 3 version is probably going to be, depending on where you are, like dirt cheap. Like I bet you could probably find this for under $10 in a bargain bin with one of those cases that doesn't have a picture on it, just because PlayStation 3 games are becoming a lot cheaper in like mainstream stores and stuff like that. If you can find a copy of this for cheap, I definitely say pick it up, like it's a solid game. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the online component since Metal Gear Online was pretty much dead on release, but last time I checked you can still do the basic like infiltration of other players' bases online, like the servers are still up and running. I mean, like, if you can find anyone playing on the PlayStation 3 version, I mean, there's a decent chunk of people playing on the PS4 version, but it's never really noticeable enough that you pick this up and you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a solid online experience. So even with the PS4 version, I'd say don't go into that expecting a solid online experience, and with the PS3 version especially, if you're picking this up, pick it up for a solid, like, single player experience, just that good old stealth action, you as Snake in an open world. But yeah, that's Metal Gear Solid 5 on PlayStation 3. I mean, you got a slower frame rate, some longer loading times, frustrating menus, and some blurry textures, but hey, this is a port that was meant to be on stronger software, and all things considered, like again, comparing it to the Shadow of Mordor port, this shit is gold. Paz is still cute as heck, Quiet is still hot as hell, the gameplay is still fresh as ever, so if you have a chance to play this on PlayStation 3, like you come across it, or you don't own a PlayStation 4 or something like that, go ahead, grab this. It's still Metal Gear Solid 5, it still feels like Metal Gear Solid 5. Is this a downgraded version? Yes. Is it noticeable enough to be called completely inferior and not worth it at all? You should disregard this. This was just a cash grab for like people on PlayStation. No. It's none of that. This is still the same game you know and you love. So with that being said, if you want to pick this up just because you're curious to see how this runs on PlayStation 3, or you don't have a PS4, or you just, I don't know, whatever your situation is, the PlayStation 3 copy or the PlayStation 3 port of Metal Gear Solid 5 definitely has Pliskin's seal of approval, and yeah, if this is the way you can play the game, go ahead and do this. Like, I'm traveling right now and I don't really have access to my own PS4, but I always try to have a copy of the games I love most no matter where I go. So I'm visiting family, of course, because it was the holiday season not too long ago, and up here they have Metal Gear Solid 5 on the PlayStation 3, and I keep it up here because, you know, I'm not necessarily going to travel with my PS4 and all of this everywhere I go, and it's nice and convenient since what we have here is a PlayStation 3. I can still enjoy and experience Metal Gear Solid 5 on PlayStation 3, and it's similar enough, like I don't feel like I'm missing out. So because of that, this definitely has my seal of approval, and if you're thinking of picking it up, or if you just happen to have it, go ahead, pop it into the station, have fun with it. Anyways guys, this has been Pliskin, over and out.